All right, everyone, let's dive right in today. We're tackling something pretty crucial and honestly unsettling, to me at least. It's the impact of climate change on agriculture, specifically rain-fed agriculture.
Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, another climate change story, heard it all before.
Yeah.
But honestly, this recent article from SpySat News, it came out December 7th, really hit me hard. It's called How Climate Change is Devastating Rain-Feeding Regions.
hmm
And it talks about this flash drought back in October that, get this, affected 78% of the U.S. population.
Wow.
78%. I mean, that's almost everyone. And I'm willing to bet most people, myself included, were barely aware it was even happening.
You're absolutely right. It kind of snuck up on a lot of us. And what makes these flash droughts particularly scary
Yeah.
is the sheer speed at which they hit. We usually picture droughts as these slow-moving disasters, but these flash droughts, they can develop in a matter of weeks. Like the SpySat article explained, this particular drought was fueled by these crazy intense heat waves, and then on top of that, you had way lower precipitation than usual. It's like a 1-2 punch, and it left farmers reeling.
Exactly. And that's where my anxiety starts to kick in, you know? I mean, I get the whole drought concept, but this flash aspect, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So can you break it down for us? How is climate change actually fueling these rapid onset droughts?
Well, think of it this way.
Yeah.
Climate change is essentially turning up the volume on our normal weather patterns.
Yeah.
Everything's more extreme. We're swinging between super hot and super cold, soaking wet and bone dry.
Oh, okay.
And these huge swings in temperature and rain, well, they create the perfect conditions for flash droughts. Like imagine you're a farmer, right, and you're used to rain coming at a specific time. Suddenly, everything's out of whack. The rain evaporates before it even hits the soil, and bam, flash drought.
And those poor farmers are left with, well, nothing. It's like the article said, these smaller farming operations are struggling to keep up. It's heartbreaking to imagine the impact this is having on people's livelihoods.
Absolutely. They're on the front lines of this unpredictable weather. It goes way beyond individual farms, too. Think about it.
Yeah.
Rain-fed agriculture makes up a massive chunk of the world's food supply.
Right.
So when these regions get slammed by flash droughts, it can throw the whole food system off balance. Supply chains get disrupted. Prices skyrocket. The article even mentioned, possible links to displacement and social unrest, which paints a really grim picture if we don't get a handle on this.
Honestly, it's a lot to process. But before we spiral into complete climate doom, I do want to touch on the comments from readers in the SpySat article.
Yeah.
It seemed like people were really grappling with the issue from all sides.
Yeah, the comments were interesting. It really showcased the spectrum of worries and potential solutions people are thinking about. You had folks like Sadie and Mackenzie, understandably worried about long-term food security.
Yeah.
And then you had comments from Kylie and Matthew, diving into specific solutions, like drought-resistant crops and better ways to conserve water.
Right, but not everyone was on board, right? I saw a few comments where people were skeptical about how bad the situation really is, even questioning, if these proposed solutions were worth the cost.
Oh, absolutely. And it's important to acknowledge those different viewpoints, too. Like, Delaney brought up a valid point. Who's going to foot the bill for these large-scale climate adaptations? And then Remington McCarty and Layla Merrill, they were concerned about the potential fallout, the social and economic consequences, especially for the most vulnerable communities.
So where do we go from here? With all these different perspectives, it's clear this isn't a simple issue with the simple fix.
Exactly. It's not about finding one magic solution. It's about having open and honest conversations, talking about the challenges head on, and then working together to come up with a variety of strategies.
Okay, I get that. But for someone like me, who isn't a climate scientist or a farming expert, it can be tough to even know where to begin. What are some things that, everyday people like us can actually do to help build a more sustainable and resilient food system?
Well, for starters, we got to remember that what we choose to buy as consumers, it actually makes a difference.
Okay.
Things like supporting local farmers, cutting down on food waste, and even just being mindful of our water usage. Those are all small steps, but they add up.
I like that, focusing on what's within our control. But what about the bigger picture? What role do governments and international organizations play in supporting rain-fed agriculture on a larger scale?
Oh, their role is massive. They need to put policies in place that encourage sustainable farming, invest in research and development to create crops that can handle these crazy weather changes, and provide financial aid to farmers who are struggling to adapt. All of that is critical.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, right? It's individuals taking action, government stepping up, and farmers themselves finding ways to innovate and adapt. Speaking of farmers, the article hinted at some pretty fascinating technological solutions.
Oh, yeah, it did. Like using satellite images to track droughts and give farmers a heads up so they can make smarter decisions about what to plant and when to irrigate. And then there's this whole world of precision agriculture, which uses sensors and data analysis to fine-tune water and fertilizer use.
Wait, hold on. Precision agriculture, that sounds super high tech. But wouldn't that create a gap between farmers who can afford that technology and those who can't?
That's a really good point. We have to be careful that technology doesn't widen the gap between the haves and have-nots.
Right.
It's crucial that everyone has access to these innovations, especially smallholder farmers who are often hit hardest by climate change.
It sounds like we're talking about a complete overhaul of the system, not just making a few tweaks here and there.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's where the whole idea of regenerative agriculture comes in. It's not just about minimizing the bad stuff from climate change. It's about actively healing and improving our ecosystems.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about regenerative agriculture. How does it work, and can we actually do it on a large scale?
Basically, regenerative agriculture is all about farming in a way that mirrors nature. Instead of depleting the soil, it's about replenishing it,
All right.
boosting soil fertility, encouraging biodiversity, and pulling carbon from the atmosphere. Think cover cropping, no-till farming, and even integrating livestock back into the landscape.
Wow, that sounds like a totally different way of thinking about farming. But how realistic is it to pull off this kind of transformation on a big scale, especially with these urgent flash droughts happening?
It's definitely a big challenge, but there are already farmers all over the world proving that regenerative agriculture isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. They're making it work, and they're making it profitable too. The key is to support these pioneers, spread their knowledge, and create policies that make it easier for more farmers to adopt these practices.
I love that you're emphasizing learning from those who are already doing it right. But let's be honest, there are going to be some tough decisions to make along the way.
Oh, absolutely. As climate change intensifies and resources get tighter, we're going to have some difficult conversations about how we share those resources and who gets priority.
And those conversations, they're going to get political, no doubt about it. It's easy to avoid those topics, but I think it's our job to lean into them, to be thoughtful, to be respectful.
100%. We need to create a space where everyone can share their perspective, weigh the pros and cons of different solutions, and hopefully find some common ground.
And that brings us back to you, our listener.
Right.
We're not here to lecture or tell you what to believe. We want to give you the knowledge, spark your curiosity, and encourage you to join these crucial conversations.
Because at the end of the day, the future of rain-fed agriculture, and really the future of our food systems, depends on all of us working together.
So what can you do? Well, you've already taken a big step by tuning into this deep dive. You're learning, you're engaging with these complex issues, and hopefully feeling inspired to take action.
Right.
And from here, the possibilities are endless. Maybe you start supporting local farms, cut down on food waste, or even try your hand at growing some of your own food. Maybe you start advocating for policies that promote sustainable agriculture, or get involved with organizations working on climate adaptation solutions. Remember, even the smallest actions can make a difference.
Right.
Talking to your friends and family about these issues, sharing information on social media, or just being more mindful at the grocery store. It all adds up.
Yeah, it all matters.
Yeah. Because this isn't just about saving the planet, it's about creating a better future for everyone. So let's go back to that article title for a second. How climate change is devastating rain-feeding regions. We need to acknowledge the damage, the hurdles, the very real dangers we're facing. But I also want to challenge that whole framing.
I like where you're going with this.
Instead of dwelling on the devastation, what if we rephrase the question?
Okay.
What if we ask, how can we create a future where rain-fed agriculture not only survives, but thrives in the face of climate change?
Now that's a question worth exploring.
It's a question that pushes us to think beyond just adapting. It means tapping into our collective ingenuity, our resilience, our unwavering belief that a better world is possible.
And I think that's a perfect place to leave it for now. On that note of hope, the SpySat article did showcase some pretty incredible stories of resilience and innovation.
Oh, for sure. I remember that one about the farmers in, was it specific region from source, if possible. They were using like these ancient water harvesting methods, but combining them with modern tech to create this drought-proof system. It blew me away seeing how people are blending old wisdom with cutting-edge stuff.
Exactly. It gives me hope, too. This isn't about going back to the good old days. It's about using the best of both worlds to build a stronger future.
Yeah, you realize that even within this, like, heavy climate change narrative, there are these pockets of pure brilliance and ingenuity popping up everywhere.
Couldn't agree more. And I think it's so important to highlight those stories, not just to inspire people, but to show them that real change is possible.
So we've touched on individual actions, government policies, tech solutions, and even this regenerative agriculture concept. But I feel like there's this bigger theme weaving through it all, something about interconnectedness.
You're right on the money. What we're realizing is that we can't solve this problem by just looking at one piece of the puzzle. We need a holistic approach that considers how climate, agriculture, economics, even social justice all tie together.
Yeah, like those reader comments, right? They were worried about who benefits from certain solutions, what the unintended consequences might be. It's all connected.
Absolutely. Take drought-resistant crops, for example. If we just focus on developing those without addressing the root causes, things like poverty and inequality, then we risk leaving some communities behind.
And that's where those, more politically charged debates come in. It's tempting to just sidestep those conversations, but I actually think it's our responsibility to engage with them thoughtfully and respectfully, of course.
I agree. We need to create a safe space where we can hear different perspectives, weigh the trade-offs of different solutions, and try to find common ground.
Which brings us back to you, our listener. We're not here to preach or tell you what to think. Our goal is to give you the information, the tools you need to form your own conclusions.
Right, to empower you.
Exactly. Because in the end, the fate of rain-fed agriculture and by extension, the future of our food systems, it depends on collective action.
It really does.
So what can you as a listener do? Well, step one, you're already doing it. You're here listening to this deep dive. You're learning. You're engaging with these tough questions. Hopefully you're even feeling a little bit inspired.
Yeah.
And from here, well, there's so much you can do. Maybe you start supporting local farms, cut back on food waste, maybe even try growing some of your own food.
You could also advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture or volunteer with organizations that are working on climate solutions.
And don't forget, even small changes can have a big impact. Talk to your friends and family about these issues, share information online, or just be more conscious of the choices you make at the grocery store. Every bit makes a difference.
That all adds up.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about saving the planet. It's about creating a better world for everyone. Now, let's circle back to that article title, How Climate Change is Devastating Rain-Feeding Regions. It's important to acknowledge the struggles, the very real threats we're up against. But I also want us to reframe the question.
I like this.
Instead of focusing solely on the devastation, what if we ask ourselves, how can we build a future where rain-fed agriculture not only survives, but thrives in the face of climate change?
That's the question we need to be asking.
It challenges us to think beyond just adapting, to get creative, to be resilient, to believe that a better future is possible.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we've really dug into this SpySat news article, exploring how climate change is impacting rain-fed agriculture. We talked about those flash droughts, the challenges small farms are facing, even that potential of regenerative practices. But it's been sticking with me.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get hung up on the problem. So how do we shift our thinking, How do we start focusing more on solutions? Like really innovative, maybe even kind of radical solutions.
That's a great point. It's easy to feel overwhelmed like anything we do is just a tiny drop in the bucket. But remember those inspiring examples we talked about earlier, those communities, blending ancient wisdom with modern tech. That's where I think the real breakthroughs are going to come from.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of radical solution are we talking about here? Something that could really make a difference.
All right, well, imagine this. What if we could actually make it rain?
Wait, what?
I know. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But cloud seeding technology has been around for a while. It's basically dispersing substances into the air to encourage rainfall.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
We can control the weather now.
Huh? Not quite that simple. Cloud seeding, it's still a work in progress, and there are definitely some ethical and environmental things to consider. But some studies suggest it could be a useful tool for dealing with droughts, especially in those regions that rely heavily on rain-fed agriculture.
Oh, okay. I gotta admit, my mind is kind of blown right now. But even if we could make it rain on demand, isn't that just a temporary fix? Doesn't really address the root problem, which is, climate change itself.
You are absolutely right. And that's why we need a multi-pronged approach. Cloud seeding could buy us some time, but we still need to work on those long-term solutions. Shifting to renewable energy, cutting down on emissions, all that.
It's almost like we need to totally rethink the way we approach agriculture, right? Can't
Mhm.
just keep doing things the same old way and expect things to magically change.
Couldn't said it better myself. And that's where the whole idea of agroecology comes in. It's this, holistic way of looking at agriculture. It basically uses ecological principles to create farming systems that are more sustainable, more resilient.
So we're not just talking about swapping out one crop for another. It's about, like, reimagining the whole system.
Precisely. Agroecology emphasizes diversifying crops, integrating livestock, building up healthy soil, minimizing the use of chemicals. It's about working with nature, not against it.
I like that. Sounds a lot more harmonious. But can we actually do it on a large scale? Can it really feed a growing population?
That's the million-dollar question, right? But there's a growing body of research suggesting that agroecological practices can be just as productive, if not more so, than conventional agriculture, especially over the long haul. Plus, you get all these other benefits like healthier soil, more biodiversity, and fewer greenhouse gases.
So it's not just about growing food, it's about creating a food system that's healthier and more sustainable all around.
Mm.
I think that's a really powerful takeaway from this deep dive. We can't just treat the symptoms. We have to address the root causes.
Right. And remember, this isn't just on the shoulders of farmers and scientists. It's on all of us. The choices we make every day, from what we buy at the store to who we vote for, it all has an impact.
So, as we wrap up our look at climate change and rain-fed agriculture, I want to leave you with this. Don't underestimate your own power to make a difference. Whether you're changing your own habits, supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, or pushing for better policies, every action matters.
Yeah, and don't ever stop asking questions, challenging the status quo, searching for new solutions. The future of our food systems, and honestly, the future of our planet, depends on our collective creativity and our willingness to embrace change.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for a better world.